Droner.
What's up, droners? I thought since so much time has passed since the last time I made a list of the top drone apps, we need to update it because a lot has happened in the last year and some change about drone apps. And I got a lot to tell you guys and a lot to explore, so let's get in. All right, so let's start off with one that I found the most fun that I discovered the most recently, 24. Now, when you first get this app, you actually get a free trial to be able to do a lot of these features that you would get if you bought it. It's $3.99 a month. It might be worth it because what this app does is it tells you all of the active flights that are happening in real time around you. So you can open this app and you can see literal airplanes flying over your head. You can get the flight information, you can get their destinations, you can get everything. And even to the point where you can actually go in and zoom into a 3D map and actually see the thing flying in space. Now, obviously you're not seeing the actual plane or aircraft because it can be helicopters as well, flying, but what you will see is just a simulation of where it is flying over at that time and the height that it's flying. So it's pretty cool, especially if you're gonna be the VO, the visual observer on a drone flight. This could be a huge asset, specifically in a place like Los Angeles where we have a lot of helicopters and we have a lot of low-flying planes like those single-engine Cessnas. This could be extremely useful to help out when you're saying, oh, hey guys, there's a helicopter coming, it's only about a mile away, we have about 4 minutes before it gets here, it's actually flying at 500 feet, so how about we drop down to 200 feet or land and let it go by even though we haven't seen it yet? Big deal. And also, if you're just in production in general, that could be really helpful because you're like, oh, we're about to be outside shooting this interview. Like, nah, let's just wait, guys. There's a helicopter coming, trust me. But this is a really, really cool app. It's really fun to play with. If you're flying often, then this is something that I wouldn't say is a must-have, but I'd say it's definitely something extremely helpful and something that if you have a big team, then I don't see any downside to having it. So highly recommend it. Get in on that. All right, next up, I'm just gonna go with the low-hanging fruit here. The DJI Go 4 app is absolutely incredible. It handles all the Mavic series, it handles all of the Phantom series, except for the Mavic Mini. It doesn't do the Mavic Mini, the new one. And it also does the Inspire 2, which one app that flies all the drones that are the most popular drones in the world is really impressive. But what makes it even more impressive is you get to go through and change all the camera settings while you're in the air. You can customize the flight controls, you can customize the way that the drone flies itself, you can turn on and off all the sensors. This is a full controller for every drone that DJI makes, and it gives you pretty much every option you can imagine to be to use that. And then on top of that, they were like, yo, you can even edit video in this app, which I don't think was a good choice at all. I don't like the editing software, the music is trash. So don't even play with the editing software at all, but you do get to save the proxies of your flights to your phone if you set it up the right way. So you can actually even review your flights and almost in real time while you're still in the air or right after you land without even having the drone on. It's an impressive app. Everything it does is incredible. It almost never has failed me in the sense of like the app itself. Like the only problems you normally have is the connection to the app in the sense of the controller that you're flying with in the drone, and there might be some kind of connection interference. But honestly, I can't say that I've ever had any actual issues with the app itself outside of using it on a Crystal Sky or something like that, just because the touchscreen is just very difficult to use on a Crystal Sky. But other than that, like I got no complaints about this app. It's so good that you don't even really see too many people trying to use third-party apps to fly their DJI drones because there's not anything that anyone's gonna offer you for the most part that you don't get already. Now, I do have one other app on this list that does allow you to do stuff with DJI drones that you can't do with this, but it's so far specialized that it makes more sense, and we'll get right into that. All right, up next is an app that honestly, I'm gonna be real with you guys, I don't have that much experience with, but when I was gonna make this video, I did a lot of research, and part of the research that I did was I reached out to the people in different aspects of the drone community that can tell me the different kind of apps that they use that they value. And one of the guys who I work with, his name is David. He's an FPV flyer, he's a racer, and he also owns and runs an FPV manufacturing company. And the first one he replied with was Drone Nation. And I was like, what is Drone Nation? And come to find out, Drone Nation is pretty cool. It's actually a social media app that allows drone pilots to connect with each other. They can send each other challenges. It's pretty much forming a community in the drone community that allows for you to meet other drone pilots, specifically other drone pilots in the areas that you're gonna go. Or you can set up flights and say, hey, I'm going to be going here and bringing this type of equipment, and I'm gonna be flying. Does anyone wanna come? And that's a really big deal because a lot of what is really cool about the drone community is that it actually is a community. If you really are flying consistently, you're gonna meet people and they're gonna know people you already met, and there's gonna just be camaraderie where they'll say, oh, you might wanna try this piece of gear gear or that piece of gear. And specifically when it comes to like FPV flying, that's when it gets really into the community mindset. And this apparently is the tip of the iceberg when it comes to figuring out how to be a part of that community. So if you are a FPV flyer or a drone flyer in general, I recommend taking a few minutes, opening up the app, looking in the communities, registering the drones you have in it, playing around with it. Because I played around with it for a while and I found it quite interesting. A lot of features that I feel like I would never use, but also a lot of features that I think will be really useful. So check it out and honestly, let me know what you guys think of it in the comments. So I mentioned earlier that there was another app that you can fly a DJI drone with that wasn't necessarily something you would expect to get out of a DJI app. And this is an app I've talked about before. If you've seen, I've actually been a part of some videos where I was mapping the coast of California. And I was doing that as a beta tester for this app called Drone Deploy. Now, what Drone Deploy is a mapping software in the simplest terms. Now, I'm not gonna stand here and pretend like I understand all the things that Drone Deploy does, but I do understand that it is an extremely easy way to be able to put some form of software or auto flying precision software into your drone, whether it be a Phantom like I did. I did it with a Phantom 3. And it can actually take your drone, control your drone, fly over an area that you predetermine, and then give you a 2D or 3D map rendering of that area almost in real time, which is insane. The applications for that are almost limitless. But for me, I don't really need that much because I'm a drone cinematographer. But if I was, say, an industrial developer or a farmer or somebody that needs to understand how much space is here or there or what kind of like topography maps I'm gonna be making, whatever it is that you wanna do to be able to look at a certain area from a way that you normally wouldn't be able to see it. I want a 3D map of the side of this mountain. Like with Drone Deploy and enough batteries, you could do that with almost any DJI drone. You can have a Mavic Pro, the original, and be able to give yourself a pretty accurate depiction of what that looks like in 3D, almost in real time. So it's a very impressive app. But like I said, I don't know all of the aspects of it because it gets pretty expensive too. You can get the free version of it that lets you get a few maps going. You can actually get the Pro version, which is $149 a month, or the Pro Business version of it, which is $449, which I assume is very much so for these industrial leaders or agricultural people that are using it to look at crops, health, and all that kind of stuff. And for me, it's like, I think this app is really impressive because a lot of the times when you're looking at 3D mapping and things like that, you're finding that people are saying, here's your customized drone with a customized camera, with customized software, whereas they're saying, hey, let's just take the drone you already have, put some software in it, and you can get this much data out of it anyway, because honestly, there is a lot of data that these cameras can gather, and we're gonna maximize every single pixel and show you all the information we can. So I think it's a very impressive app for what it does. My own personal use with it, it was extremely easy to use. You literally just take a map, say this is where I wanna fly, make a little, like literally spread your fingers, and it creates like a little area, like this is the area you want, you're like, yup, and then you just say go. The drone takes off and then literally flies in a grid over that area. And even if you run out of batteries in the middle, it'll fly back to you. You change the battery, it'll go right back to where it started and be able to continuously fly it. And then the reason I was mapping the coast of California is because after you already create a map and already fly a grid, you can go back and fly the exact same grid again without having to re-input it. You can just say fly the same route as before. You take it there, you start it up, and it'll fly the exact same routes because it saves those GPS coordinates and is able to do that. Impressive technology, impressive software. The applications, like I said, may be endless, and I don't even understand all of them. But again, this is one of those things that I would like to learn from you guys. Have you used it? Tell me in the comments and tell me what you think of Drone Deploy. All right, and last but definitely not least, I'm gonna talk about two different apps that kind of do somewhat similar things. One that I use a lot, another one that was recommended to me from a drone pilot I fly with all the time, Dominic. First one is Air Maps. If you don't know what Air Maps is, get to know it. It's free software, you just have to register it. It's an app, put it on your phone. It's a big deal because this tells you ahead of time what the airspace looks like before you fly. So you're like, I'm gonna go fly here. Every time a client tells me that they want me to do a drone gig, the very first thing I do is ask for the address. The second thing I do is I take that address, put it into Air Maps, and I look at that airspace requirements of what's gonna be there. Now, that's really cool that it can tell you that, and it also can be, you can set the filters of how you're looking at the airspace based upon the type of flying you're doing. So if you're a recreational pilot, then you can put in recreational rules, and it'll tell you what restrictions you have. Or if you're Part 107, you can put in Part 107, it'll tell you restrictions you have there. It even has a 333 exemption, which I don't even really know anybody who has that, but you can put that in there too for some reason. But my point being is that you can look at the airspace and know ahead of time. And you're like, well, yeah, that's cool that you can look at the airspace, but what if it tells you can't fly? So funny you would ask that, because it also has the LANC, L-A-A-N-C, authorization inside of the app. So if you need to fly somewhere that does have, let's say, a 0 grid or a 200 grid or something like that, that it's like this, I need permission to fly here, you can get it in real time on this app. You can put in all your information and say, I want this permission to fly here. You can get that granted, and that you can take a screenshot of that and send it over to the permit office and be able to fly, obviously, if you're permitting your flights. Big deal, extremely easy to use, and I love it. On the other side of that, there's another app that Dominic told me about. Actually, I'm sorry, Wolfgang Weber is the one who told me about this one. It's called UAS Sidekick. This one costs $4.99 a month. He says he lives by this because it's easier to do the LAA-NC registration, which is getting the authorization to fly. It also does very, very accurate to the moment weather maps. It tells you like where you're standing right now, where the wind is coming from, like what the percentage of precipitation is, humidity, pretty much all the weather data you could ever want for that area, as well as the airspace area. So I think that the UAS Sidekick is a little bit more detailed, maybe slightly easier to use, but it costs money. Whereas, you know, we have the free version of that, for me at least, was Air Maps because it does everything I needed to do. I haven't had any issues with that. In all honesty, I think Wolfgang uses both because he's just kind of OCD about it. So Wolfgang, come at me in the comments if you got something to say about that because you are OCD, fam. So either way, those are the two apps that I think are really, really good for understanding the airspace, the weather, and pretty much the general conditions that are what you will be flying as a professional drone pilot. So you should be using those. All right, Droners, thank you so much for watching it. Let me give a big shout out to Airwolf. He has his own YouTube channel. I got the link below. You should go check out his videos. He's a nerd, he's OCD, but he's also one of the best drone pilots I've ever seen fly. So he's definitely worth tuning into and listening to. And honestly, if you want to see more of what I'm doing and tune into what I got going on, we got more videos here and there because we always got 2 of them. And you should subscribe because that really tells us that you care and that you want us to keep doing this kind of stuff. Because we don't know. So just subscribe and let us know. And as always, make sure you stay fly.